Namaskara, good evening everybody. Thank you for coming. ಭಾಳ ಖುಷಿಯಾದ ದಿನ 28ನೇ ಡಿಸೆಂಬರ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಪ್ರಿಯರಿಗೂ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದಾದ್ಯಂತ. ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮನ 2 ಭಾಗಗಳಾಗಿ ವಿಂಗಡಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಮೊದಲನೇ ಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ M K ರಾಘವೇಂದ್ರ ಅವರು ರಿನೌಂಡ್ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಸ್ಕಾಲರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಕ್, ಹಲವಾರು ಖ್ಯಾತ ಪುಸ್ತಕಗಳನ್ನು ಬರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಬಗ್ಗೆ. ಒಂದು ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಅವಾರ್ಡ್ ಕೂಡ ತೊಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವರ ಲೇಖನಕ್ಕಾಗಿ. ಮತ್ತು ಹಲವಾರು ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅವರು ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ದೇಶೀಯವಾಗಿ ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯವಾಗಿ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಖ್ಯಾತ ವಿಮರ್ಶಕರು ಅನ್ನೋ ಹೆಸರನ್ನು ಪಡೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಭಾಳ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಮನಸ್ಸು ಮಾಡಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಈ ಸಭೆಗೆ ಬಂದು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಪ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ದ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಸಮ್ ಫಿಲಸಾಫಿಕಲ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸ್ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಅಂತ. ಹಾಗೆ ಅವರು ಏನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮಷ್ಟೇ ಕುತೂಹಲದಿಂದ ಕಾಯ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಅದಾದಮೇಲೆ 2ನೇ ಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ವಿ ಕೆ ಮೂರ್ತಿಯವರು ಛಾಯಾಗ್ರಹಣ ಮಾಡಿದಂಥ ಒಂದು 8 ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಹಾಡುಗಳನ್ನ ಬಿಡಿ ಬಿಡಿಯಾಗಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಅವುಗಳನ್ನ ವಿಶ್ಲೇಷಿಸ್ತಾ ಅದನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಮತ್ತು ಅದು ಒಂದು ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಕೂಡ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಲ್ಗೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನನ್ನ ಇಚ್ಛೆ. ಬರೀ ಒಂದು ಚಿತ್ರ ನೋಡಿ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗೋದಲ್ಲ, ಪ್ರತಿ ವರ್ಷ ಅದು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಒಂದು ಸಿನಿಮಾ ತೋರಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಮನೆಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಅರ್ಥಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಸಲ ಬೇರೆ ಥರ ಮಾಡಿ ಪ್ರೇಕ್ಷಕರು ಕೂಡ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ತಮ್ಮ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯವನ್ನು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಪಡಿಸಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂವಾದ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಇಚ್ಛೆಯೊಂದಿಗೆ ಆ ಥರ ರೂಪಿಸಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಟಾಕ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದಟ್ ವೆನ್ ಐ ಕಮ್ ಟು ದಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್. ಈಗ M K ರಾಘವೇಂದ್ರ ಅವರು ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ವೇದಿಕೆ ಮಾಡಿ.
Let me first begin by thanking Suchitra and Lace Films and Bhaskar for having invited me here. It's a big honor. With an auditorium like this especially, this is a fabulous auditorium, fabulous, and I'm very gratified that so many people are present to listen to this talk. So I know be able to see. Okay. Now to begin with, okay. Now Indian cinema, it's okay, na? Now, Indian cinema is one of the seems to be one of the cinemas with the world have resisted Hollywood. It looks like Hollywood can't make an impression in India. It looks like that Indian movies will always do better. The Hollywood spends a lot of money. They have spectacle. They have all kinds of things. They have action. It looks like Indians prefer to see Indian movies. And next one. Indians prefer to see Indian films, and it's almost Hollywood has not made any headway. At the same time, Indian films are doing very well abroad, talking largely to Indian, diaspora audiences from the diaspora. When it comes to the international arena, you find that Indian cinema is not doing so well, in the sense that in film festivals, in award ceremonies, and all that sort of thing, Indian cinema doesn't really feature at all. If you look at all the cinemas of the world which came much later than Indian cinema, stuff like Turkish cinema, Iranian cinema, Hong Kong cinema, South Korean cinema, even Philippines. Now all these cinemas of the world are much, much more highly regarded on international platforms than Indian cinema. For some reason, Indian cinema doesn't seem to have made it. Okay, it's also true of Indian literature in some sense, that the very absence of Nobel Prize winners, except for Rabindranath Tagore, it looks like Indian literature also made it. Now it seems to be, why is it that India is so different from the other cinemas of the world? Is there something specific? Can you put the next slide?
You have to raise your hand once and change the slide.
Okay, I'll do this?
Yeah.
Okay. This first one, okay? Is there something very specific about India? Is there anything specific about Indian aesthetics? Is there anything specific about Indian narration? So it could be, okay, that we are living in a kind of society which is completely different from the other societies of the world. It's unique in some particular sense, okay? If that could be an explanation. So if you look at Indian cinema, what are exactly the underlying notions, the philosophical notions, the ideas underlying narration. So if you look at Indian cinema and you look at world cinema, my thing is that you might be able to explain in some way, understand in some way why Indian cinema is very different from other cinemas of the world. I want to make a point here that if anybody wants to interrupt me, if they disagree with me, see, these are all not things which I've learned from books, okay? This is all the stuff I've arrived at from my own writing, from my thinking about this, thinking about that. So it's not something that you will find in any book except probably my books, okay? So the question is that you are always with, it's not like physics where when a teacher comes up and talks about something, the next teacher comes, both of them are teaching you sound or they're teaching you light or something. Both of them, magnetism, they'll teach you exactly the same thing will come out. Here the thing about literature, arts, all these issues, that if two different people speak on the same subject, what they say will be very different. So what I'm saying is not truth in the sense that it's not contest, it's not beyond contest. I would, it could also, if you find it difficult to understand what I'm saying, please interrupt me, it's not a problem. Interrupt me or disagree, we will raise questions. And I'll be happy to stop my talk there and answer the question and go on. Okay? Now, this is the thing. You can do the next one. Okay? Now, when you come to the origins of cinema, the very first film which came out was that of the Lumiere Brothers, I think in the late 19th century. And I think you must be knowing about this. Lumiere Brothers were manufacturers of, I think, some goods. And they developed this camera and they started shooting cinema. And the very first movies they made were workers coming out of factory, train arriving in station. What kind of cinema is this? It's documentary, right? That is, they were just recording reality. The purpose of cinema initially was to record reality. This is very first use to which it was put. Now it so happened, okay, it was a big draw. People came, paid money, they sold tickets. It was a big draw. Among the first people who were invited to attend the Lumiere Brothers screenings was a man called George Méliès, okay, Méliès, who was that one. You go to the other one, second one. Méliès, and Méliès was a magician. Now, after he saw this, he saw that that cinema would be put to a completely different purpose from what the Lumieres imagined it would be. And he saw it exactly in the same way, that cinema guarantees reality. You will mistake a train arriving at the station shown on a film for an actual train arriving at a station. So he thought that since cinema was so convincing as reality, it could be used in magic shows to create illusion which would be believable. Okay, this is the basic thing of Méliès. How did he come up on this thing? The story goes that he was shooting a film. At some particular point, the film jammed. Okay, it wouldn't go. The camera jammed. The film wouldn't go forward. And when the camera jammed, what was going on in front of him was a car. Was going on the road. Okay, so then when he started the camera again, repaired it and started it again, there was another image in front of him, and that was of a hearse. A hearse is carrying dead bodies. Okay. So the question is, when you actually developed the film and showed it, it looked like the car had been turned into a hearse. Okay, it was magical in some sense. So that became a reason for him to say that cinema can recreate reality on the screen in a plausible way, so simply by a cut or a dissolve. So something which is a man will become a woman will become a child will become a horse, this sort of thing, right? So you use this notion of illusion to make a whole series of movies very different from what the Lumieres did. The Lumieres decided upon as a documentary. Here he started promoting illusion. So his thing is a mad scientist who takes off his own head and bounces it like a ball. I mean, movies like that. There's a man going to the moon. I mean, all his movies are this kind of stuff, right? They created the illusion of fantastic illusions of the fantastic. Okay, that was Méliès. Now, the thing about cinema is, the cinema is a narrative art, but it is different from literature, it is different from theatre, is different from the other narrative arts. How is it different? It is not made, it is not constituted by man-made objects, it is constituted by bits of reality. So what is caught on screen, okay, will be, sort of you cut it up and you join it in a certain way, and cinema is actually is a kind of narration which is made out of images of reality. So you could say it's constituted by reality, it's not constituted by, a word is a man-made object, actors acting out as things are man-made objects, paintings are man-made objects, but the photographic image is a mechanical object, it's not made by man, it's simply a record of actual, what is actually seen, okay. So that being the case, it soon became evident that cinema would be the ideal way, to further mimesis. Does the word mimesis mean anything to you? M-I-M-E-S-I-S, does it mean anything to you? It is simply the imitation of the world. Okay, it is the imitation of the world. It's a Greek term. It means that the world is, you want to understand the world. You understand the world. Art must imitate life is the basic thing. So mimesis is simply a way of imitating the world and presenting the world and making art by presenting it as it is. Now, is it possible to present the world as it is? Some response: is it possible? What is the size of the world? What is the experience embodied in the world? It's enormous. It's huge, right? So when you cut off a piece of the world, when you take a piece of the world in the camera or you write about it or whatever, the point is you're being selective. So there is an inherent element of selection. There's an inherent element of distortion in any mimetic process, right? So that being the case, when cinema went about making mimesis, what was the first thing which came into cinema? What was the first thing which came into cinema? It was distortion, right? What was the need for distortion? What is the when the photographic image is undistorted, let us assume it's, of course it's selective. When if I want to take a picture of this classroom, I say I want a picture of this classroom in Suchitra, in this room in Suchitra, camera can aim at you, it can aim at the technical devices, it can aim at the screen, it can aim at the ceiling, it can aim at the curtains, anything. You're selecting, right? You're selecting and you're making some sense of it depending on your own preferences, on your own preoccupations. Now the question is, this selection, distortion is the way of introducing the observer into the reality. So when you look at reality, okay, there has to be an observer. So the observer is the person, his view is always distorted. So the thing is, what happened with the thing of illusion of Méliès was, it gradually went off into this thing called expression. So when you talk about mimesis, there are two aspects. One is reality, one is expression, right? Are you familiar with this film called Cabinet of Dr. Caligari? I don't know if you've, a lot of you may have seen it. Yeah, you have that. That's called expressionism. That's a very specific form of distortion. It's German, but the Germanic cinema. But there's all kinds of distortions are possible in cinema. In fact, you can't make cinema without distortion. Even the cut, for example, Eisenstein, what is called realistic. The cut is by joining two things, by comparing something to another, you're distorting in some way. So finally what happened was that reality and the personal viewpoint, okay, the personal viewpoint became the two shall we say, polarities of cinema. Reality as it is and the personal viewpoint of the filmmaker became the two polarities of cinema. One side became completely what was called realism, one was called expressionism, okay. Expressionism is a very broad term under which this thing of German expressionism will come in. These two became the polarities of cinema. Now this is the fundamental thing about world cinema. And finally you can say that I'm generally talking about the fiction film. What about documentary film? Will you have distortions in documentary film? Will you have expression in documentary film? Is it possible? What is your view?
As it is.
As it is, looks like but you have things like voiceovers.
Yeah.
You will have things like narrations. You will have things like personal viewpoints. You will have these. They distort in a certain way, but not quite in the way of fiction, right? I'll give you an example of how it is used in a horror movie, for instance. I don't know, in a horror movie, you want to convey a certain emotion. There is this horror movie about called Dead Ringers, about doctors. Okay. Now when you have the operation scene in this horror movie, what is the normal gown that a doctor wears? What is the color of the gown? Green, right? Why is green the color of the gown? In order to sort of draw your attention away from what is the body. Here in this operation sequence, the operation sequence in this horror movie, everybody wears scarlet, color of blood. Okay, so their coats are the color of blood, so that to induce some feeling of some kind of revulsion, some kind of feeling in you, that the entire thing of medicine, the entire thing of surgery has to do with blood, and to drive home that point, which is just the opposite of what it would be. It would be expressionist in some way. You understand? So the question is that finally these two polarities, all film in one way or another. Bergman would be highly expressionist. Okay, the thing is something like okay, let me ask you. Supposing on the left hand side to you, this left hand side would be bicycle thief. On this hand side would be Bergman, or say something like The Silence or something like that. You understand that, no? On one side you have, it's not that bicycle thief is completely realistic. There is narration, there is some subjectivity, but minimal. It becomes very high as you go on the other, to the other end of the spectrum. Now these are the two things, okay? No, next. Okay, now the two dichotomies. You talk about V K Murthy, which we're going to have something about V K Murthy. V K Murthy introduced this black and white thing of sharp contrasts of expressionism into Indian cinema. That is his basic contribution to Indian cinema. I'll talk about that a little, okay? Okay, now we come to Indian cinema. What was the first Indian film made? Who was the person? Phalke, right? D.G. Phalke was the first he's sort of, it could be somebody else, there's some controversy. But basically he's given credit for the first film made, okay? What is the kind of cinema that Phalke made? Did he begin with a documentary? Did he begin with fantasy? What did he begin with? Mythological, okay? Now strangely, Phalke called his mythologicals realistic films. He called them realistic films. Why was it realistic? Why was Phalke's documentary? He said, it is giving a manifestation to what is already known. Now this is important, right? Now the question is, he did not believe that Rama was a fiction. He thought Rama and Krishna, all of that was real. And a number of people who think Rama and Krishna are real, right? And the way it is represented. So the point is, he was not talking in terms of real. He introduced a new term, which is truth, right? Now truth is a completely different thing. Truth is what is known, truth is what is, it's not what is seen. See, when you talk about realism in cinema, when you talk about photography and talk about realism in cinema, what is the reality you're talking about? It's verisimilitude, resembling in appearance, right? Resembling to the senses is that kind of realism. Now what Phalke did was, he thought about realism. In fact, the very first film which was supposed to have inspired him is called Life of Christ. I think most people would know that. I went around looking, what is this Life of Christ? Is it a film which is known? It's not a film which is known at all. Nobody knows about this film. I found it in some encyclopedia somewhere. I think it was made in 1905 or some such thing. And it was, I think, Italian film or so. I forget what it was, but it's basically not a well-known film. So the question is that he should be inspired by some film which is of no consequence in the history of cinema. You won't find this film. And he called this real. He said that is the truth. Okay. So the question is, what is true is not only what you see in front of you. What is true is also what is belief. Right? You have faith in Krishna. You have faith in Bhagavad Gita. You have faith in certain things. And these are the things which are true to him. So the question is, what happened was it became. So the question is, even when Hindi cinema moved out of mythological, of course the other Kannada, Tamil and Telugu continued. Hindi cinema moved out of the mythological somewhere around 1942. I won't go into why that is. It's it seems to be 42 when the last mythological was made in 1942. There are political reasons for that. We won't go into that. But the point is that even after Indian cinema went down to the mythological, what you can call the depiction of fiction, the way fiction was was the same Puranic epic way narration. It was no longer Rama and Krishna. It would be an ordinary man wearing a suit, but his qualities that man would have would all be out of the Puranas, out of the epics, right? So the question is, in the Hindi cinema, popular mainstream cinema, started with this entire thing of the Puranic epic mode of narration. And it is very different, the Puranic epic mode of narration. Somebody asked me once, okay, well, has Rajkumar played an ordinary man? Can he play an ordinary man? I said, Rajkumar may have played a poor man, he has never played an ordinary man. He can't play, Shivaji Ganeshan can't play an ordinary man. Okay? Shivaji Ganeshan and Rajkumar, they play these larger than life characters, they have these huge personalities. See, there are only certain emotions which are allowed in this epic Puranic mode. For example, I mean, if you look at the way the Puranic characters would be fear, okay. Just to give you an example of what is a Puranic kind of emotion, fear, jealousy, these are very large emotions, right? If you take a non-Puranic realistic mode, it will be nervousness. You can't have a nervous hero in a mainstream Hindi film. You will have a filmmaker who is afraid. Love is one Puranic kind of thing. Affection would be milder, okay. Now these are all different registers, at different levels it works. You won't have a Hindi movie, you won't have affection. You will have love, you won't have affection, right? You will have fear, you won't have nervousness. Now this is the kind of thing of the larger than life. So Rajkumar would not be able to show nervousness in any film. I mean, if anybody can recall a film in which Rajkumar has been, he could be fearful, okay, he could be afraid, but he can't be nervous. If anybody can recollect a film in which Rajkumar has been nervous, I'd be happy to listen to you. Anyway, the important thing about this is that these characters who come out of popular cinema, like those coming out of the epics, are exemplars. They exemplify what we think of the world. The example. Everybody is an example to something. He's an example to wickedness, or he's an example to the good. He could be. It does not mean always good. Okay. Duryodhana is an example. Karna is an example. Everybody is an example. Okay. So you can take somebody like Diwar, if you take a person like that Vijay in Diwar, he's like Karna in many ways. He's an example. He's an anti-hero. It is not that he behaves as how people should act, but he behaves as good people might act in those circumstances. That is the way. So that's a kind of example of some sort. So everybody is an epic, is an exemplar of some sort. It's not only that the good people are exemplars, okay. Dhritarashtra is exemplar, Gandhari is exemplar, Karna is exemplar, Duryodhana is exemplar, Shakuni is exemplar in some way. Okay, everybody is example of something or the other. Okay, now a key feature of mimesis, important thing about mimesis is it proceeds on the notion that the world cannot be known. The world cannot be known with certainty is a key requirement of mimesis. It's the way by which it proceeds. So what happens? What do you do when you mimic the world? What is the most fundamental aspect of the world? What is the most fundamental aspect of the world? The most fundamental aspect of the world is its complexity, right? It's enormous, it's made by God. Human beings can't imagine a world as monstrous, as huge, as thing as God has made it. Man has tried to imitate God by creating art. Art is the way by which man has tried to create in order to become divine in his own way. Art, the philosophies, all these are ways by which man has tried to imitate God, but it's still a small world, it's a pathetic world compared to God's world. I'm using the word God in a very, shall we say, secular way. I'm not attributing, I'm not, it doesn't matter whether you believe in God or not, but the point is that this word, so the point is that when the world is mimicked in some way, when you have mimesis, you imitate the world in its complexity. So what happens? What is the fundamental thing of cinema? A great cinema, it is ambiguous. Great literature is ambiguous. We don't know what it means completely. It must be as difficult to understand, or at least at the same time, the world has no meaning in itself, right? Art must have a meaning. So you have ambiguity, you have complexity, two key issues of all art, right? All art should be ambiguous or complex. We don't know what it means. It should imitate the world in such a way that we can interpret. That's why the critics like me come in. Okay, we interpret the film. What does this mean? What is he trying to say? And once you allow interpretation, you allow difference of opinion. I think so and so about this work of art. He thinks so and so. So there are two different views of the work of art. That means interpretation comes in. Interpretive critics come in. But once you have a notion in the truth as underlying, and this truth is based on belief, is there room for interpretation? Will you have interpretation in the Palke thing? Can you interpret the Ramayana? Can you interpret the Mahabharata? It's not that it's not complex, okay? But its complexity is a different kind of complexity. What is the Mahabharata? If you were to interpret the Mahabharata, you were to interpret Shakespeare's Hamlet, how is the interpretation different? Why are there different texts, different kinds of texts? Why is in Hamlet, okay, is interpreted as a mimetic thing? What is Hamlet? What is the psychology? Why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? Here, the Mahabharata is complex because it tries to deal with the complexity of an ethical notion. Dharma is the ethical notion. It is trying to communicate this ethical notion to the general public, and it's talking about the various circumstances under which Dharma should be explained. And Dharma, unlike the Ten Commandments, is an extremely complex notion because it's based on your position in society, it's based on how you are born, it's based on all that. Everybody has it, everybody does not have the same Dharma. They have their different Dharmas and how these different Dharmas interact. So the complexity of the Mahabharata, okay, is basically the complexity, owes to the complexity of the notion of Dharma, which has to be interpreted, which has to be, so it's not interpreted, it's not like you can't interpret Karna the way you interpret Hamlet. Hamlet is not an exemplar. Karna is an exemplar. Am I making sense? Does it make anything to you, right? We are supposed to learn something from Karna's life. We are supposed to learn something from his death. We do not learn anything from Hamlet, right? So what happens is gradually Indian cinema, this Indian thing, what has happened is that Indian cinema has taken this thing, this course, when the truth comes first, right? So Indian cinema has never been mimetic, therefore it does not, Indian cinema is not complex. Popular cinema is not complex the way Western cinema is complex. This also happens in, I don't know how to make this connection. If Indian cinema is difficult in some way, it's intricate, right? You understand the difference between intricate and complex? Intricate is linear, it's got patterns, it's got this. Complexity is multiple meaning, right? They're completely different, right? It's like Indian music, Western music. Indian music is intricate. It's intricate. Well, it follows. It's not like Western music where you have two different notes coming, two different notes, where the two notes together will produce a third thing. It's a completely different thing. I won't go into why that is so. I think it also depends on prayer. Why the notion of prayer has come in. There is combined prayer of some sort. Here it's individual God, connecting to God individually. It's come out like that. I won't go into that. It will become too complex and I'm not too sure of myself there. Okay, I won't talk about that. Okay, but the point is that interpretation, okay, you will not interpret an Indian movie. Indian movies are there on the, what is there on the surface is delivered. There's a message given to you. The message is the truth. And what happens is that gradually, what happens is that this truth is pre-existent, which is why unlike a Hollywood movie, where you want to actually, the meaning of the film is arrived at differently by different critics after the movie has been seen. What is delivered is the story from which the meaning is derived. Indian cinema begins with the meaning, popular cinema begins with the meaning, which is delivered through the vehicle of the narration. Okay, so what is the strategy they use? By and large, the strategy they use is to have a seed in the story. It's like a seed growing up into a tree, and that seed is usually the first cause. It's there, when the story usually it used to be there. The first cause is the first event which creates everything. In Diwar, what is the first cause? It's that Mere Baap Chor Hai, right? He is humiliated, his father is a thief, and it's written on his thing, and that humiliation carries him through. That whole story builds up out of that, right? That is a defining element. Where in Western narration, one event will go to another event, will go to another event, will go to another event in a linear way. This entire thing starts from the first cause from which other events, different events take place. These events are themselves not. So everything derives from the first cause. What is the first cause of Devdas? His father punishing him, right? Okay. What makes Devdas weak? It is the fact that his father has punished him. I'll give you 3 or 4 examples to understand how ubiquitous, how how common this thing is. We don't notice it at all. Okay. Devdas is punished. How does Devdas, the entire thing of Devdas is his weakness in this, weakness with women, weakness. Why is that? Because of father's punishment. So that father's punishment is the first cause which completely defines the whole story. Look at Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. What is the first cause in Hum Aapke Hain? Completely different film, right? What is the first cause? What is Hum Aapke Hain Kaun? What is the story? All of you have seen this movie?
Yeah.
What is the story of the film? It's about these two families have always been brought together through marriages, right? The two families are so close together, right? They have to be brought together by marriage, this marriage, second marriage, third marriage. When the first marriage, the woman dies, you have to have another marriage because the family has to be, two families have to be kept together. Why are the two families got to be kept together? That is the first cause. What is the first cause? The first cause is Anupam Kher, okay? Alok Nath was in love with Anupam Kher's wife before they got married. They were good friends, and because he was a good friend, so stepped aside, and Anupam Kher married Reema Lago. Okay, now because this man made the sacrifice, these two are good friends. Okay, that sacrifice is what brings them together. Now the question is, Alok Nath never marries. He's not father, he's uncle. Why is he uncle and why is he not father? He is uncle because if he had been father, okay, he would have been, that sacrifice would not be perfect. Okay, if he had been father, it means married somebody else, which means his love of that woman would not be true, right? So the question is, that first cause is created as a way of bringing the original sacrifice. Original sacrifice has been made by Alok Nath, as a result of which this man owes something to that man, that friendship comes together. Okay? So the entire, and that the important thing about Hum Aapke Hain Kaun is, that entire sacrifice about childhood romance is kept off screen. It's told in flashback, it is related. What is the first cause in Three Idiots? What is the first cause in Three Idiots? It is this Rancho who is actually a gardener's son, okay, being a genius, giving up his and wanting to be wanting to study and coming and becoming a student in an engineering college. And without that, the entire his genius, none of it will work. That is the cause of his genius. He was born in a gardener's family, so he's not really a rich man. That the whole story works by that. The fact that he's a genius and the fact he came out of a poor family is very important here. But it's never, he doesn't behave as if he came out of a poor family. But the point is, that is the final thing which brings everything together, it explains everything. Okay, it's done at the end of the film. But the important thing is, this first cause is a kind of seed. Without that first cause grows into it, it's not one event going to another event, this is the way it works. Okay, now, I have some sense here of, next one. Some question. Just a kind of remark to you. What is the sense of knowledge preceding experience? What is this knowledge? What I'm saying is, if the truth precedes experience, that is, truth exists before experience. What does it tell you about what kind of truth is this? This is I don't know. Are you familiar? All of you have gone through college. You know this. We were told, when I was in college, I was told that truth is within you. Okay? Knowledge is within you. Haven't you been told? What kind of knowledge is within you? Farming in a drought-stricken area is knowledge within you? Is stock market investment decisions within you? Is the nature of the atom knowledge within you? Obviously there are, right? So my whole sense is, this sense of knowledge being within you seems to be Brahminical knowledge, okay? It seems to be, it's Brahminical knowledge, and it's this Brahminical knowledge, okay, which has this thing, there is this sociologist called Andre Bete. He was, in some talk, he said he was wanting to make some investigation of farming practices in Tamil Nadu. He came to some Brahmin household, and after that he wanted to go and visit these farmers and talk to them about farming. So Brahmin said, why do you want to go there? You can talk to us. Okay. So knowledge precedes experience, right? It's not empirical, it's not derived from what you know. See, normally what is theorizing? Normally how does theorizing proceed? Theorizing proceeds from a certain level of experience. You generalize. You say, if under certain categories this will happen, under certain, so it proceeds from experience. You can't have theory without experience, right? Okay, theory follows experience. Here, it looks like that this entire thing of theorizing, theory, seems to come from not from everyday experience, but from some mystical experience of some sort. So I mean, when you talk about, see, when you talk about this mystical experience that there are wise men have seen certain things, it is not experience available to everybody. It's an esoteric experience available to certain people who have undergone, available to Ramana Maharishi, it's available to Ramakrishna. It's not in the realm of the everyday. We cannot gain knowledge from our experience of the everyday. It is knowledge derived from a very special experience, a mystical experience. We really don't know what that mystical experience is. But we have faith that certain people have that mystical experience, okay? So the question is, based on that mystical experience, there are certain truths. And we all recognize what these truths are. So what Hindi cinema does basically, what it does is, to deal with these truths. So there is nothing in a Hindi film which is not familiar. Okay, so what you will get in a, I say Hindi, I don't mean only Hindi. Popular cinema by and large deals only with familiar experiences. There is nothing unfamiliar that the thing will give you. It's like a musical composition. Okay, your enjoyment of classical music is based on its familiarity, right? You're not going to listen to something you don't know and appreciate it. It is something you know. It's the familiar being repeated in certain patterns in certain way. That is what you appreciate. So what happens is that cinema has also gone in the same way. It is generally dealing with the familiar. It is dealing with familiar emotions. It is dealing with familiar messages. It is dealing with all these, which we understand as truth, as which we understand as wisdom. We understand all these things. That's the way we understand it. Okay. Now over time, these truths are themselves changing. Okay. Now, so they don't seem to be the stuff like, for example, in Bunty or Bubbly, it's a very different kind of truth from Mother India kind of truth. Okay, it's a very different kind of truth in Kamine from the kind of truth in from the kind of truth in Upkar, right? So the question is, these truths have undergone change, but each truth, like I mean, when your Puranas and your epics are so varied and so rich that you can get contradictory truths out of them and you can use them in. So the question is, all truths which come out of popular cinema are by and large from these Puranic epic truths. These are the kind of things, okay? Now we will go into now the point is to relay these truths. I've come up to the point that each film has a certain truth to relay, and in order to relay these truths, the cinema needs a grammar. It needs a kind of grammar, right? And this grammar is a kind of syntax. What is the kind of language cinema will do? Now we'll deal with this one, okay. It's all right. It's okay. You can see this now, okay. Now the important thing is, this message, the familiar message has to be relayed without distortion. It's necessary not to have distortions. As a result of it, you've got to have certain constant elements. The constant elements are these things like everything has essential attributes. Just to give you an example, characters, they have, it's not possible, that when you see a person in a Hindi movie, that you're not immediately aware of what kind of person he is, right? And you immediately know what kind of person he is. At first glance, he is there. It's not only about people. Everything has a certain. When you start thinking about this, please think of the older movies. Don't think of new movies. It becomes very complicated, right? I'll have to explain it. So think of the older movies, because gradually something has happened. We won't discuss that. The older movies, spaces, for instance. Okay. How is it? What is the thing which connotes a rich man's house? It has its quality. What is the rich man's house? It has this winding staircase, right? It used to have this winding staircase. That is a rich man's house. A hospital will have a doctor in a white coat. It will have drips. Okay. Police station you have. These are the fundamental spaces in which narration takes place. Police station, rich man's house, poor man's house. Okay. in this movie called Andaz, 1949, I think, Mahbub Khan's Andaz. Both the hero played by Raj Kapoor and the heroine played by Nargis are both rich. Both have city houses, okay, and both have winding staircases. So the question is, how do you distinguish this house from that house? They have to be. How they deal with this is that Raj Kapoor has a mother, Nargis doesn't have a mother. So Raj Kapoor's house is a house with a mother, Nargis's house is a house without a mother. So as soon as you go to Raj Kapoor's house, you'll find the mother standing in front to welcome them. So the house becomes a house with a mother. No, it's important to understand this. It looks funny, but this is the logic of conveying certain things. It's the logic of conveying a message without distortion so that people will fully understand what this message is, right? This is the thing this is the way it goes. So there are a lot of things, and it's you will never confuse when you have, see, for example, a wicked man with spectacles. How many wicked men have you seen with spectacles in popular movies? Why? Somebody will say there is some wicked man with spectacles, but the point is, spectacles, okay, connote scholarship, right? People with spectacles are in films are people who are scholars who have studied so much that they become impaired eyesight, okay? So the thing is, so basically this thing of scholarship associated with spectacles will go along with, it will not go along with wickedness, because education is supposed to do things to you. It's supposed to make you good in some way, right? So you can't have a wicked man wearing spectacles. Can you have a terminally ill person who is evil? No. Not possible at all. So the question is, there are these incompatible things. There are these incompatible. If you ask me how is a person to create a character. See, for example, I tell you, I try to write a novel, so I have understanding of how characters change in novels, right? So what you normally do is you have concordant elements. Okay, so you have elements which come together. Like for example, two elements which are not connected in any way. Good, for instance. Okay. Can be stingy, okay? So the question is, stingy and good can go together, right? So they are concordant, whereas cruel and good will not go together, right? So the question is, when you put two of these characteristics like stingy and good, and the point is that he is oscillating between saving money and doing good things, at some particular point you can have him change from being stingy to good, okay? In this cinema you won't have that. When a person has a change of heart, it is we have to have green lights or blue lights or something, and then suddenly, inner voice. But actually that character doesn't change in any way. They'll tell you that he was actually good, something happened and he became bad, but that entire thing of, of actually complexity of character, doing in such a way that a good man is forced to commit murder. This is standard components of Western cinema. Is a good man forced to commit murder, a bad man who is forced to do good. Okay, these are things. Now the question is, you won't have that, okay? Doctors are noble, young people are romantic, okay? Spectacled people are scholarly, studious. Childhood friends need to be, playback singing. Let's look at what is Lata Mangeshkar's role as a playback singer, okay? Lata Mangeshkar has a voice which is an abstraction of a feminine voice. It's not really a feminine voice as we understand the term. It's not an individual voice. So they went on using Lata Mangeshkar's voice again and again for ideal femininity. The virtuous ideal woman would have Lata Mangeshkar's voice. The not so ideal woman with vampish tendencies would have a sister's voice. Okay, this is the basic thing of. So the question is, when Lata Mangeshkar went on, they started getting new singers who did exactly the same thing, imitating Lata Mangeshkar. You look at classical music, you've got any number of voices in classical music, and you have a voice like Gangubai Hangal playing, not possible at all. Because the characters here are romantic, okay, they are fragile, okay, and they are, they are romantic, they are fragile, they are innocent, okay, these are the basic qualities of women. So Lata Mangeshkar's voice, which is almost childlike, in many ways, the film heroine has the same characteristics of the child. Is innocent, okay, is fragile, is weak, can be easily. So the question is, Lata Mangeshkar's voice was used to play in child roles also. So this is the way it went on. So so you could say generally that this thing of all these things of playback singing, the very notion of playback singing is completely taboo in Hollywood movies. It's completely taboo. But here it goes perfectly well, right? simply because you're dealing with ideals. And the songs are not part of the fiction. The songs are abstract emotions. Okay, like if you in a Hollywood movie like Oliver, you have a song in which you've got to pick a pocket or two is a song. Okay, it's contextual. It means Fagin is a pickpocket, he's singing a song. It's possible. In Hindi song, is it possible for a wicked man, for the villain to sing a song? Why? Why can't the villain sing a song in a Hindi movie? Because the song bears a message. The villain is not the bearer of the message. It's the hero who is the bearer of the message, right? So the villain can't sing a song. These are fundamental characteristics. You got to understand that. Okay, it works like that. Okay. Okay, then. Okay, now the important thing about this meaning of the story, okay, the meaning message which is the thing, is not a contextual message. Now let me explain to you what contextual message is. A war movie, okay, is a war movie, is it war is a bad thing, war is a horror, is it the standard message in all war movies? No, right? World War I has that message, World War II has a different message, okay. World War II is good versus evil. World War I is, so it has a completely different message. So if a soldier deserts during World War I, it's perfectly acceptable. If a soldier deserts in World War II, he is a coward. Here he is anti-war, he doesn't like to take human lives, here he is a coward, okay, because there World War II has got a difference. So the question what happens in things about Hollywood movies, Western movies is, all truth is contextual. It depends on circumstances, the situation in which it arises. It's only in the context that truth has any meaning. It's not so in Hindi movies, okay. All meaning is non-contextual. It is eternal, okay. Which is why regardless eternal, but the thing it keeps changing all the time. Nowadays, for example, the eternal movie coming out of Hindi, some of the Hindi movies is that everybody is a scoundrel. Is a movie which is coming in Hindi movies. The movies like Kameen, some of these things like, I don't know if you've seen this Anurag Kashyap's Raman Raghav 2. Have you seen that? And what kind of movie? I really don't know what to make. It's still got a message. He's not, that everybody is a scoundrel, policeman is a criminal, criminal is a criminal, everybody is a criminal, everybody is a scoundrel. It is actually a message of some sort. No, the point is, you understand it, but it's still a familiar message. See, at some point in our lives, when you go shopping and you're cheated by some fellow, and then you'll say everybody is a scoundrel, right? Okay. It's a familiar message to us. When you're cheated, and you find you were cheated twice in a day, you will say everybody is a scoundrel, and you will go and cheat the third person, and you will justify that with these two, right? Now, this is basically it. It's a familiar message, okay? It's not that it's unfamiliar. So the question is, it's a message which comes, it's a certain cynical kind of message, which you may find in the Mahabharata somewhere, in certain parts. Ashwatthama kicking those children there, and it's not that it won't be there in the epics. It will be there in a certain point, a certain nihilistic point. It's not the whole epic, but it will be found in some Purana, some epic, somewhere you will find this kind of thing. So the point I'm trying to make is that these truths or the messages which are being relayed by by Hindi cinema have gone on changing. They are all familiar. They all belong to our, shall we say, our store of. Okay. Now the important thing is, because everything is non-contextual, everything is the truth, there is no place for point of view in a Hindi movie or a popular film. There is no point of view. Okay. Everything is third person. There is no subjectivity. So this entire thing of expressionism, realism, which is so crucial to this, and doesn't happen in Indian cinema at all, because there is nothing called personal expression. Everything is truth. There is no. See, for example, there are two kinds of subjectivity in world cinema. One is called authorial subjectivity. What is the author trying to say? The other is character subjectivity. What is the character seeing? Okay, these are completely different things. They are two different things. So in a movie like Vertigo, you will have character subjectivity. What does he see? Point of view. This sort of thing is there. And the other thing is authorial subjectivity. What Hitchcock is saying. So these are two different. So what normally happens is, in Hindi movies, you will ask me. This is a question. What about the dream sequence? Isn't the dream sequence in Hindi cinema subjectivity? Isn't so and so having the dream and not anybody? Isn't he having a dream? Right? Can you answer this question? If a person has a dream, what is the content of the dream? Okay, it's generic. Okay, it has to do with romance. It's not like your Bergman's Wild Strawberries. Have you seen Wild Strawberries?
Yeah.
That the dream is very different. It's psychological, right? The dream has to do with his psychological state. Hindi cinema, it's not. It has to do with love. It has to do with romance. It has to do with fear. These are all standard things, which are standard emotions. Okay, apprehension. These emotions. So these are not. These dreams are generic. Okay, they convey very broad emotions. They are not the kind of. They are not psychological. They are not psychological. The products of psychology, right? So the question is that subjectivity is completely absent in popular cinema by and large. Okay. Okay. Now I'll go on to the next one. Next one. So everything is familiar, everything takes place in the third person. It's like the Sutradhar who knows, who ordains all the events. There is nothing which is taking place outside the knowledge of the Sutradhar. Okay, everything is known, is being put out. So it is not that. So this entire thing of what is the author trying to say doesn't. Author trying to say means there's a difference between reality and what the author imagines of reality, right? Here there is only one truth. It cannot be split up into personal opinion. It can't be split up into reality versus personal feelings. So it can't be split up like that. Okay, I think I've made a point up to this point. Okay, now we'll go to the last slide. Okay, now we come to the thing of all I'm talking about is true popular cinema. What about art cinema? Where does the art film come in? Where does a new kind of cinema come in? Where does the earliest art film came out of the IPTA. Now, what is the basic thing of the difference between art cinema and popular cinema? What is the fundamental difference? Art cinema does not deal with epic characters. You can imagine. See, one very interesting film I've seen, which the Kannada popular film. One of my favorite Kannada popular films is Bhakta Prahalada. Have you seen Bhakta Prahalada? You've got Rajkumar playing epic. Okay. The Hiranyakashipu is an epic character, large emotions, this, that. And here you've got Anant Nag playing Narada in a novelistic way, right? See, the basic thing of the epic and the novel, what is the difference? The epic is oral. It comes out of declamation, it comes out of recitation, it comes out of this. The novel comes out of writing, okay? So the novel has aspects, it admits all kinds of detail, it admits the kind of characters, it admits psychology. See, it admits psychology in a way that an epic will not. It admits psychology, it admits commonplaceness, it admits nervousness. So you have Anant Nag, you see Anant Nag's kind of acting, no? It comes from the art cinema thing, right? Anant Nag kind of acting is very different from the Rajkumar kind of acting. One is the epic narration and the other is the literacy. So you could say that basically the difference between the two modes of narration, art cinema and this is, art cinema comes out of literacy, okay, and popular cinema comes out of orality. Orality, everything is recitation, everything is larger than life. In order to make it, people who cannot refer back to the text need these very large things. So the question is orality. If illiterate people, you talk to them, okay, the kind of emotions that you will recognize as a reader of newspapers, as a reader of novels, are very different from the kind of emotions that orally, shall we say, a working class person who's not had an education, who's in several generations, what emotions they recognize will be very different from the kind of emotions that a literate person who's read novels will recognize. So we could actually say that we literate people are constructed psychologically in a different way from those who are not literate. They are constructed by how after all, how would you construct yourself? I compare myself to a novelistic character. I recognize whatever emotion he is showing there. I recognize Duryodhana's emotion when he saw this, you can recognize those emotions, right? But it comes out of this thing of the oral tradition, that is, they won't understand nervousness, they'll understand fear. I'm talking about the working class, right? Whereas literate people recognize certain. So what has happened is that gradually this art cinema caters to the literate group. So it can deal with ordinary people. In fact, the entire philosophy of art cinema was it should deal with ordinary people, common situations, everyday situations. So you have Amol Palekar. Amol Palekar can't show love. He can show affection, right? Just as Rajkumar can't show affection, he can only show love. Amol Palekar can't play those enormous, larger. You You can't cast him in the role of Shakuni. You can't do that, right? Shakuni would need some, kind of acting. You can cast him in the role of, a person out of a novel. One of a novel, basically a novelistic character. So the question is that that gradually when these novelistic characters came out of the art film, but gradually things have happened. Now if you look at popular cinemas of India, what is a singular popular cinema which is very different from every other popular cinema? What I have said about popular cinema will not hold good for that cinema, for that popular cinema. What is that? You have Mohanlal, who is a popular actor. Is Mohanlal the kind of popular actor that Shivaji Ganesan, MGR or Rajinikanth was? No. The popular film in Malayalam is very different. Why is popular cinema in Malayalam different from the popular cinema in Kannada or in Tamil?
Literate.
It's a literacy. They have had literacy. People are constructed by the novel. They understand novelistic emotions. Okay. I mean, a popular audience, a working class audience, which is not accustomed to literature, which is not accustomed to fiction, which is not accustomed to that, which takes its characters from the epics, will not be able to understand the kind of emotions that Mohanlal will portray. So in Kerala, it's perfectly okay. Okay. What happens in Kerala, level of literacy being high, people understand these emotions which come out of novels, so this man can do that, right? So it's a completely different kind of thing. One more thing, Hindi cinema is gradually moving away from whatever I said, from the epic thing. People like Irfan Khan can be a hero of a movie. Okay, you can have somebody like Nawazuddin Siddiqui as a hero of. It's possible to do that. Why is that happening? How is that possible that in the mainstream film you've got these people like Nawazuddin Siddiqui can come in and make it? Because Hindi cinema, which was once addressing an undifferentiated audience, is targeting multiplexes. And multiplexes is a literate audience, right? The cities, there is a certain thing. Now you have got a lot of Hindi movies which can be understood by people, basically English speakers. The titles are in English, the names are in English, a lot of conversation in English, okay? So this sort of thing is happening. So you can have a lot of popular cinema which is, for example, I would say that Tithi is hardly it depends on the novel, right? The kind of emotions in Tithi, Kannada film Tithi is, it's still a popular with a wider section, but you can see that. So what happens is that generally that you can talk about the dichotomy on one side between one of these first dichotomy is the Indian notion of the truth preceding experience, and the other thing is the notion of orality and literacy being the truth. So you can take these two, x-axis and y-axis, and plot all Indian movies like this. Okay, this is the way. Now if you look at the various actors like Bimal Roy, if you look at Saigal's Devdas and you look at Bimal Roy's Devdas, you will see one Saigal's Devdas is the epic Devdas, right? The epic character. Bimal Roy is played by Dilip Kumar, is a novelistic person. He's not Saigal and P.C. Barua are emblems of weakness. They're emblematic of weakness. Whereas you take Dilip Kumar's Devdas, he's a weak individual. Okay, they are completely different things. He's not an emblem for anything. Okay, but the other characters in some of the other characters in Bimal Roy's film will be there. So the question is, a lot of this cinema, what we call middle cinema, has both kind of characters. Some of them are played this way, some of them are played, it's a mixed kind of thing. Parts of it are like this, parts of it are like that. But the basic thing is it works like this, right? It works partly from the novel side and partly from the epic side. Satyajit's Pater Panchal is probably one of the first movies in which is driven by individuals and not by epic characters, right? Not by emblems, not by epic characters. It's very important. Okay. Now, as I said, okay. So this is finally what we come to is that these two things, one is this Brahminical thing of knowledge preceding experience, the other thing is the orality literacy thing. Once you've got these two axes, you can chart all Indian films in this, regardless of where it comes from. You'll get some kind of sense of how it goes. I think I'll stop here. Okay. Any questions? I think I've taken an hour. I'll be happy to answer any questions, any doubts, any disagreements, anything. I'll be perfectly happy to answer these questions. It's all been fairly clear to you? Any question? Even individual films, if I can recollect the film, if I've seen the film, I can answer. Any particular thing? Yeah, please.
Sir, you spoke about, when we spoke about Malayalam films, that literacy being a factor to it. But somewhere recently I was reading, Tamil Nadu also boasts about 83 to 85% literacy. But do you know how Tamil films are? Can you throw some light on it, please?
Tamil Nadu is, I think, it's Tamil. You see, the Malayalam has a long history of literacy. You know? It's been literate for a very long time. One more thing about orality I want to mention. See, orality in India is different from orality elsewhere because it was valorized. It was valorized means in Sanskrit, the pronunciation of the word is much more important. Okay, truth is in the way. It's very important how the word is pronounced. So orality has a certain value there. It's not simply the fact of absence of lack of knowledge of reading and writing. For example, I believe Malayalam, the Nambudiri families, even in the early 20th century, the firstborn male was discouraged from learning reading and writing. What was important was the pronunciation of the word, the magical qualities of the word, pronunciation and the language, how it was spoken was much more important. So orality has a different meaning in India. Okay, gradually it has disappeared, but that thing took a long time to disappear. In fact, it is where does the Brahmin get his power from? He gets his power from the pronunciation. They may not know how to read or write Sanskrit, okay, but they know how to pronounce, they've memorized. That is the basic thing. So orality has that meaning. Now, in Malayalam, I think for this thing of literacy was a very much larger thing for a very long period of time. I think Tamil Nadu, you will see that what I am saying, Kaka Mutta is what? Okay. So Tamil Nadu is changing, obviously it's changing considerably because there's an increasingly literate public coming. So Tamil Nadu is changing considerably. If you look at Veera Pandya Kattabomman, or if you look at MGR's films, that is a completely different thing. But I think literacy is only now. See, Tamil Nadu has made a lot of progress. It seems to be growing, which is why Tamil cinema is changing. Telugu seems to be more or less in the same thing. Okay. So as the literate population increases, you can say that cinema will also undergo a change in some. Please.
So by that sense, Marathi cinema is way different than does not have those mainstream aspects to it, and Maharashtra per se does not have a higher literacy rate. But still, you see a lot of these.
Which film are you talking about?
So, if I could give an example, Natrang would be one of those films. Then recent Marathi movies that are coming are
Natrang,
Natrang. Marathi film.
Marathi
You want?
film.
The new one.
See, one of the things about Marathi cinema, whatever you probably have bought, all the Marathi film is completely art cinema.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the whole point.
It's not Sant Tukaram is not art cinema.
No, I'm talking about the recent Marathi.
Yeah, art cinema, well, it's like your Kannada art cinema, Kasarvalli, Girish Kasarvalli, Sheshadri, all these are art cinema. They belong very much in the literacy mode. They are not in the epic mode at all. Right? That would hold good. I mean, even if you look at Assamese cinema, Janu Baro, all this is in the literacy mode, right? It's not in the epic mode. That's all art cinema. See, there is the pan-Indian art film, right? There is the pan-Indian art film. All these movies make according to the pan-Indian model. They are made locally, but there is this pan-Indian art film which is a separate category which belongs to the literate public, right? Your Marathi, the prime movers in pan-Indian art film is Maharashtra, Kannada, Malayalam, Assam, Manipur. These are the areas where this pan-Indian art film thrives. Pan-Indian art, they are not very different from each other. In the same.
No, but how are these things directly related to literacy? Because literacy per se is not.
Pan-Indian art film, reaches a very small fraction of the public. It's not you can't think that Sumitra Bhave's movies are going to reach the multitude in Bombay. It's going to be. It's meant for film festivals. It will be shown in certain. It's targeted at a very specific public. It's meant actually for film festivals. It's meant for awards. It's that kind of thing. Like Kasarwadi's films will not be seen except except to a literate public, to an aware public with knowledge of cinema. It cannot be shown to a general public in a theatre. It won't run there. It has to be shown only here, right? I mean, you got the thing, no? I mean, a large public, if you look at the budget of the film, if it's a large budget, they will never have large budgets. These are all small budgets. You're talking about the Sumitra Bhave kind of films now.
I'm talking about the recent Marathi films where the story is driven by individuals, and something like even Sairat, which had
Sairat also would be some kind of middle kind of thing. I don't know how it works on the. It seems to be sort of perched somewhere in the middle between this and that, right? Sairat. Where it could be, it can work partly novelistic, partly epic. Okay, it works on both. But I would put it more on the novelistic side. And I don't know. I mean where do you have any idea where it was successful? What is the kind of audience?
So it was highly successful in Maharashtra, which also had lots of shows running in the rural parts of Maharashtra as well. That's the reason why I'm asking you is how is literacy directly related to the kind of films that people are watching? Because in the end, cinema, as far as I've learned, cinema has to convey the emotions, and people are supposed to take away the emotions and not the literally.
Okay, now let's take that character, that Sairat character, okay, that main character. He's actually perched between the epic mode. He's heroic in some heroic thing, winning, coming first in everything, always doing best in everything. Okay, that is from your old Dharmendra thing. Dharmendra always came first in class. He was good in sports. He was good in that on one side. On the other side, you have got this caste thing. He's playing both. He's playing both sides, right?
Seems to me he was only.
He's not completely novelistic character. His complete superiority at everything he does. In fact, the whole thing works on the fact that despite the fact that he's a Dalit, but he's superior at everything he does, and the other people don't like it. He's playing both. He's not a novelistic character, such a novelistic character. Where are these psychological? You see, one of the important things about a novelistic character is psychological. He's endowed with the psychology. Okay, what is that psychology? Okay, it distinguishes me. Nervousness. Okay, afraid of certain things. Okay, being resentful. Okay, these are the resentful of certain things, of failure, and then being shall we say, these are the things of the characters of a novel. Now, what are the people who come out of a novel? A person who is very good at everything he does, who becomes a victim because of his caste, is still a Ekalavya kind of character. Ekalavya is an epic character, right? He loses because of his caste, right? It's all these. In fact, Sairat, I would think, is hardly a novelistic, but it's shot in a real locale. Okay, it's shot with people who are not glamorous in the original sense, but they do, shall we say, epic things. They perform superhuman feats. Then finally, they are given this thing because society is so. He's playing that. He brings in contemporary issues into an epic framework. Okay. But yeah, don't tell me that Sairat has got psychology. He doesn't have a psychology. You understand what I mean by psychology, right? Amol Palekar and Rajnikanta would have some psychology. Coming late, coming this, all the time talking about his boss, all the time, So he has a psychology. Epic characters don't have psychology. They are driven by one emotion. Like this guy is success, this, that, and the point, this works on that thing. You show him successful, and then finally kill him and say that success is no use to him because of his caste. This is the way it works, right? Okay, Sairat is the film. Yeah, please.
We have one more question. It's time for one more question.
Yeah. So, literate means, I think the consumers are literate.
That's
It's not generally literate.
No, the people who see the thing, but it's also meant for that audience.
So, the consumers are literate so that the movies comes like that. And then your two examples were very interesting. Because of multiplex, Nawazuddin Siddiqui is hero.
Yeah, correct.
And then the other very interesting example is Mohanlal, MGR, Shivaji Ganesan and Rajkumar.
Yeah.
That is also a very interesting example.
Yeah, last question.
Okay, last question.
When you are talking about art films, don't you think they are working within their own constraints? They are not outrageously experimental, as in the case of David Cronenberg's Crash or Dead Ringers, or recent movies like Boyhood. We have not reached that stage of experimentation. What do you think is the reason behind it? Indian art movies. They are
Shall I? Okay, let me. Every cinema needs a public, right? All cinemas have a. So what is the public? It has a constituency. All movies have a constituency, right? Hindi cinema traditionally was the all India, all Indians. Okay, so everybody, if you don't know English, Hindi also, you'll understand a Hindi movie. He'll say Chand, he'll say Nadi, he'll gesture, he'll tell you. Your vocabulary of 5 words is enough. Pyar, Adalat, Mujrim, okay, 4 or 5, Khoon. I mean, 4 or 5 words is enough to understand a Hindi movie, right? That was the basic thing. So basically, they were catering to the all India thing. What is the Kannada movies audience, public? What is the constituency of Kannada cinema? It used to be old Mysore, by and large. It enlarged in some way to become the Kannadiga, okay, with the concentration in these districts comprising old Mysore was once upon a time the fundamental thing of what is the constituency of the art film? It is state. It is the state. The state is the constituency. It is shown to representatives of the state at film festivals. It is shown at awards. It is meant for TV screening. It's basically basically it's a kind, you can talk about the art film in India as some kind of liberal conscience of the nation state. That's what it is, okay. So all art cinema has to be some kind of liberal conscience, all of them work by that. So whatever issues are important, this is by and large, I'm not really, there are some art filmmakers who don't do this. Malayali, this chap didn't do it. What's his name? Arvindan didn't do it. Kumar Shani, Mani Kaul don't do that. But by and large, art cinema as a movement has progressed because of government patronage. This is the way it has gone. It's not done through private funding. Without government patronage, there will be very little art cinema. But they will have this new Hindi cinema. You will have things like Lunchbox. You will have things like Queen. You will have a certain slightly different kind. But basically, you could say that Indian art cinema, because it is dependent on state patronage, has generally been. State patronage doesn't mean you ban it or something. You just don't get selected. Okay, you put me on a jury. I've seen how juries function, right? If you put in anything which goes into popular movie format into an art film like a song and a dance, okay, they'll throw it out. Even if the film is otherwise interesting, they'll throw it out. Because what happens when you put 8 people on a jury, okay, they will pick the lowest common denominator. They'll pick I've seen this happening in juries, okay, I'll tell you, it's outside the scope of this talk. Jury, I'm not one of these Indian juries, international jury. 8 people are sitting around discussing. First time you have first round, okay, everybody votes for his best film. Then you find that nobody else wants your best film. They have their own best film. You have a second round, right? The second round, everybody lowers it and chooses a film which they think is second best. By the time you come to the 5th round, everybody selects a movie he doesn't like. Okay. And finally, the movie which gets it is a film nobody really likes, but everybody thinks it's better than the others. This is the way it works. So what happens is when you have juries determining these things, okay, and I'll tell you, let's face it, okay, it's crucial for an art film in India to get onto this panorama, for its destiny to be decided by a jury, okay. It's crucial. If it's not decided by a jury, it doesn't get onto the panorama, it doesn't get an award, how is it going to recoup its cost at all? Very difficult, okay. So the question is, what has happened is that everything goes around into this thing of liberal conscience of the nation. So all films are liberal conscience of the nation. What will happen is, of course, it's outside the scope of my talk. Whereas in Western thing, there is experimental cinema, there is Cronenberg, there is all kinds. Cronenberg, of course, initially started off with horror. But there are all kinds of things which comes out of this thing. There is no liberal conscience of the world, right? There is the liberal conscience of India. There is no liberal conscience, all kinds of stuff. But even that, nowadays, is changing. Nowadays, the kind of stuff which is coming in film festivals are all, if you are an Indian film, it has to cater to it. It has to have a certain form. You have to, it's important in a film festival internationally to to represent in the countries like India, Russia, Iran in a way which will have the approval of the West in some way. They have an opinion of India is like this, you have to make that film to suit that. You show India in a different way, you can't write a novel, you can't publish a novel, you can't make a film, you can't do anything. Similarly, why is Zviag himself? I don't know if you're familiar with Zviag himself. Because it shows Russia as a third-rate, absolutely third-rate country. He's a very competent filmmaker. But the point is, it's extremely negative. It's virtually telling you that Russia is a disease. Okay, this is the which is why his film. So the question, Iranians are Asghar Farhadi makes movies where the basic thing is he's got a formula. The way that formula works is, okay, you take one negative aspect of Iran and you have a mystery of some sort. Finally, that mystery, the cause of that mystery is revealed to be this negative aspect of Iran. This is basically the formula. He keeps on moving in film after film after film. He is very competent. Look, it's not that you can just use this formula. He's a highly competent filmmaker. He knows. So finally, you look at that. What is this? It will be some aspect of Iran which Iranians are familiar with, which can't be a mystery to them. It's like this. You make an Indian movie, okay, in which at the end it is revealed that something is happening because of his caste background, right? Everybody knows that caste is crucial in India, but a person in caste will not know. So if you reveal to him that caste is the last thing, you will be making an Asghar Farhadi Indian film. This is the way it works. So then, it's a complicated thing how it works. Okay, now you originally used to make all movies used to be national first and international later. Now an art film begins by, I'm not so much about Indian movies. An art film, worldwide art house film begins by being international, shown to festival audiences first, and then it becomes national. So you make different kinds of movies for them. Okay?
Sir, thank you so much for this wonderful talk.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Mr. Shashidhar, Secretary of Suchitra Film Society.
Please, thank you.
Interesting topic.
I call upon Mr. Shivram, Les Films. Let me just do the formalities, we get through this and then we can start off. Thank you for a very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
You opened up new horizons, new windows. It's been so long that we hope to again. Sir. From Blaze Films to Mr. Shashidhar, this evening is possible because of the initiative of Mr. Shashidhar. He insisted that we continue this tradition of having the World Cinema Day. Thank you so much, Mr. Shashidhar.
1 minute, I just want to say, ಶಿವರಾಮಣ್ಣನು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಭಾಸ್ಕರ್ ಈ ಚಿತ್ರದ ಇದು ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದ ವಿಶ್ವ ಚಿತ್ರ ದಿನಾಚರಣೆ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಕಾರಣ ಇವರಿಬ್ಬರು ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇವ್ರ ತಾಯಿಯವರು. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಅವ್ರು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಪ್ರತಿ ವರ್ಷನೂ ಅವ್ರು ಬಂದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ತೋರಿಸಿ ನಾವು ಎಷ್ಟೇ ಸಾರಿ ಆ ಹಳೆ ಚಿತ್ರಗಳನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಕೂಡ ಅದನ್ನು ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ನೋಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇನ್ ದಿ ಏಜ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿಸ್ VR and augmented reality and all that, we are going back to see the real world, which nama M K Raghavendra, he put it in a very nice way. And ಇದೇ ರೀತಿ ಭಾಸ್ಕರ್ ಮತ್ತು ನಾ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದನ್ನು ಪ್ರತಿ ವರ್ಷ we should do that, and we should remember how we progress from ages, from within 150 years, so many things have happened. But if you don't remember that, and Murtiji was a great inspirer for all of us. ಬೇರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಮೂರ್ತಿಯವರು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ಅವ್ರು ಮಾತೇ ಆಡ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಭಾಸ್ಕರ್ ಇವರು ನಮ್ಮ ಅಣ್ಣವರು ಸೇರಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ಅದನ್ನು ಇದು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಸೊ ವಿ ಆರ್ ರಿಯಲಿ ಫಾರ್ಚುನೇಟ್ ಟು ಹ್ಯಾವ್, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ. ಐ ಆಮ್ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಲೇಸ್ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ಸ್, ದೇ ಆರ್ ಡೂಯಿಂಗ್ ವಂಡರ್ಫುಲ್ ಜಾಬ್, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಐ ವಾಂಟೆಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ಅವರ್ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಆಲ್ಸೋ. ರಾಘವೇಂದ್ರ ಭಾಳ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಎ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ workshop so that within a short time you could use so many things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.